This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A 20-year-old college student wanted to be careful about buying a used car. It was her first ride. So she had a safety inspection done at a Winnipeg Canadian Tire. The car broke down just 20 minutes after she handed her hard-earned cash to the seller. Rosa Marcatelli from CBC's Go Public unit has her story.
Tara Harper thought she was in the clear. After all, this used SUV had passed a Canadian Tire safety inspection just before she bought it. So she handed over $5,000 to the private seller. On the way home, the engine died.
I was really furious.
The seller agreed to fix the engine on the 2007 Hyundai Santa Fe, but Harper was still nervous, wondering what other safety issues weren't covered in the Canadian Tire inspection.
The longer you look, the more you find.
She asked mechanic and family friend Todd Holmes to take a second look, and this is what he saw. A severely corroded frame, what should have been an automatic fail for the inspection.
You have a frame that disintegrates during an accident, and it could cost someone their lives.
Some provinces require vehicles to pass safety inspections when ownership changes or every year or two. The garage that did Harper's was provincially certified, but that didn't help her. She says the seller and Canadian Tire just blamed each other.
If the seller's not responsible and Canadian Tire is not responsible, what's the point of the inspection?
See where the max is right here?
Harper also wonders what the seller knew about the car. Go Public reached out to him repeatedly, but didn't hear back.
Complaints should absolutely be followed up.
An automobile consumer protection expert says car buyers may be surprised to learn that inspections often don't cover key parts of the vehicle, like the engine and transmission, and that the system lacks oversight.
What you end up having is the illusion of protection when a government oversight program is not effective.
Canadian Tire says the damage could have happened after the inspection, but mechanic Todd Holmes says that's not possible, since the corrosion he found would take a lot longer than the couple of months that had passed. After Go Public's inquiries, two things happened. Canadian Tire reimbursed Harper for the $5,000 she paid for the vehicle as a goodwill gesture, and the province banned the Canadian Tire location from doing the mandatory inspections until August. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Striking MPI workers could be back on the job soon. The Union for Manitoba Public Insurance Workers says employees have been voting on a new offer today from the employer. Results are expected later tonight. The strike began August 28th. Manitoba's doctor shortage is getting worse before it gets better. The province is falling even farther behind in the number of physicians it needs to reach the Canadian average for physicians per capita. CBC's Ian Fraze reports.
Moderna?
Wob Canoe, seated for his shot.
So I'm ready to roll my sleeve.
The Premier is ready for more than his seasonal COVID and flu shot. He learned Monday his chief promise of fixing the healthcare system just got more difficult. New data shows Manitoba needs more doctors than expected.
Well, I think this is telling us that what Manitobans have already been experiencing, which is that we need to staff up healthcare, is even more urgent.
445 more doctors just to meet the Canadian per capita average. Doctors Manitoba held a news conference Monday. Dr. Michael Boroditsky is president.
Manitoba's doctor shortage, which is already at record high, is getting even bigger.
Second worst in the country. The reasons are numerous.
The morale and work has just not been what it was, and it's hard to go to work and it's hard to do. So that's probably the biggest thing that is palpable when you're on site in the front lines in the action.
Also concerning for the physician advocacy group, half of doctors are planning to retire, reduce their practice, or leave the province in the next 3 years. But Boroditsky says there's reason for optimism.
I don't want it to be all doom and gloom.
These statistics are months old. The new NDP government has promised 400 more doctors, and physicians recently signed the contract with the previous PC government. It offered a funding boost 10 times higher than the last agreement.
We are hearing preliminary feedback from our members of, oh my God, you hit this. this thing is a game changer for me. This makes a difference. This allows me to spend more time with the patient.
Tory health critic Kathleen Cook says the NDP has had a, quote, good vibes approach to healthcare policy since taking office. In other words, a lot of talk, not enough action. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Protests at the Brady Road landfill earlier this year led the city of Winnipeg to go over budget on household garbage disposal. City council is being asked to approve $400,000 more for residential waste disposal. City contractors had to deposit waste at a pair of private landfills when Brady Road was closed. The private landfills charge higher tipping fees. So the annual budget for solid waste disposal is $15 million, and the extra cash needed this year amounts to about a 3% increase. With the Israeli-Hamas war entering its fourth week, groups of pro-Palestinian protesters took over 17 MPs' offices in 12 cities across Canada, including right here in Winnipeg. They want these members of parliament to demand a ceasefire. CBC's Zubina Ahmed brings us more.
Liberal MP Dan Vandal's office has been taken over by Queers for Palestine. The entire office and windows have been covered with Palestinian flags and signs condemning the ongoing Israel-Gaza war. 10 to 15 people are staging the sit-in. They're reading out the names of over 7,000 Palestinians killed by Israel since October 7th. Dasha Plett is the organizer.
We are giving MPs letters that we're asking them to sign that basically have 4 demands in them related to the struggle for Palestinian liberation. So those are an immediate ceasefire and allowing in to Gaza of humanitarian aid, an end to the siege of Gaza, which has been going on for a decade and a half. But the oppression of Gazan citizens has been going on many, many decades longer than that. An end to Canada's economic and military complicity in the genocide.
Plett says the sit-in is part of a nationally coordinated action by the Palestinian youth movement. Similar sit-ins are being held in other cities like Edmonton, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver. They're hoping to get the letter signed by each of the MPs and will send it to Justin Trudeau's office demanding a ceasefire.
Our goal and the reason that we're here is that Dan Vandal is like the highest ranking Liberal MP. And of course, because the Liberals are like in power and our government right now, they sort of have the greatest responsibility and possibility of like calling for international action.
Meanwhile, in yesterday's rally, Winnipeg's Jewish community turned their focus towards hostage recovery. More than 60 people gathered Sunday afternoon outside the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Some carried signs and flags, while others pushed empty baby carriages adorned with stuffed toys and photographs of children believed to have been kidnapped.
We're right outside the Asper Jewish Community Campus, where a group of Israeli supporters have displayed teddy bears and photos of people, children, adults and seniors held captive in the Gaza Strip.
The Jewish community will gather again on Thursday evening outside the legislature to continue the call for the release of hostages. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg police say they're getting an increasing number of reports of crimes which could be motivated by hate. Disturbing incidents are happening at protests and also online, and also around homes, near a school, and a place of worship. A warning now, this story contains some distressing images. CBC's Emily Brass reports.
Tempers have been flaring for weeks over the war in Israel and Gaza. Winnipeggers expressing anger sometimes cross the line into what many consider hate speech. A recent photo of a protester's sign made its way online. It shows an Israeli flag being thrown into the garbage. The sign upset one Winnipegger so much she went to police.
I came here for a bit more peace, a bit more quiet.
Priya Lisak is from Israel and says that sort of message brings the conflict over here.
That kind of imagery you'd see back in Israel sometimes as well, and so it kind of worries, for the future if someone is able to walk proudly downtown Winnipeg with that. what else could happen.
You can't put a flag in the garbage.
The same hateful message is circulating in reverse, with the Palestinian flag being thrown in the trash. Ramsey Zeid also notified police about disturbing posts on social media. The community leader says he tries to keep hateful messages out of the protests, but that can be hard in a crowd of thousands.
We have volunteers that are going around all the time, looking at the signs, taking signs down, keeping people in the right lanes, in the right, making sure everybody's safe, that everything it's not anti-Semitic, it's not anti-hate, but things slip by.
Now, police are looking into crimes suspected to be motivated by hate.
The ongoing conflict in the Middle East is having a profound impact all over the world. And we have not been immune from these effects of the conflict locally.
Police are investigating several potential hate crimes here in the River Heights neighborhood. In one case, a home had its windows shot out. In another, a religious item was vandalized and left in a parking lot. The federal riding of Winnipeg South Centre is home to more Jews than anywhere else in Manitoba. MP Ben Carr says he's hearing from residents scared about the incidents reported to police and disturbing graffiti.
We are not going to be able to dictate the outcome of the conflict in the Middle East. It's just simply not within our control. We all want to see peace in this region as quickly as possible. We want to see an end to the conflict. But what we can control here at home is the decision to be kind, respectful, and dignified.
Carr says he's organizing an event aimed at fighting discrimination. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A search is underway in southern Manitoba right now for an aggressive wild pig. The group Squeal on Pigs Manitoba has put up posters like this one, asking people to report any sightings of that mature wild pig in particular. That pig doesn't seem to be scared of people and therefore could be dangerous. Eurasian wild boars are an invasive species. They've wrought havoc in the U.S. and in Canada. They were promoted as a hearty and tasty livestock option, but really, they've just caused ecological damage. If you see the creature, you can report it at squealonpigsmb.org. The environment and climate change were not big issues in Manitoba's recent election campaign, but the new NDP government is making moves when it comes to energy. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, Premier Wab Kinew has set emissions targets for the province.
97% of the power generated in Manitoba doesn't come from fossil fuels. The new NDP government wants to get that up to 100% by 2035.
This would involve shutting down Manitoba's last natural gas-fired power plant in Brandon and replacing diesel generators at 4 isolated northern communities. The problem is how to replace that power with electricity from elsewhere.
I think the first place that we need to look is at energy efficiency. And in particular, the proposal that we've made to move home heating towards heat pumps in Manitoba can really create a nice win-win-win scenario.
Premier Wab Kinew says cutting down on energy use is easier than generating more power. Experts say that's right, but it'll take more than heat pumps for individual homes.
Air source heat pumps won't enable hydro to meet peak demand in the middle of winter. When it's 35 below, air source heat pumps are basically the same efficiency as baseboard heaters.
Kurt Hull of Climate Change Connection says the only way to really save energy is to build entire new neighborhoods with geothermal heating.
We need ground source heat pumps. We need geothermal implemented at a broad scale.
Under the previous PC government, Manitoba Hydro said it wasn't feasible to wean itself entirely off fossil fuels in 12 years. The official opposition is concerned the new Democrat directive will cause harm.
If Manitoba Hydro is going to be directed to do some significant generation changes and probably grid changes as well in order to meet this commitment, at the end of the day, there's going to be a cost for that, and Manitoba ratepayers are going to have to pay it.
The new government also wants Manitoba to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Hydro isn't commenting on either of these energy targets.
Manitoba Hydro has been treading lightly about the new government's goals for the Crown Corporation. Changes to Hydro's board or even its executive are possible in the coming weeks or months. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meteorologist John Sauter joins us now on what, as we just saw in Bartley's stand-up, has been a blustery day.
Yeah, you know, at times I looked out the window and it was like we were inside a snow globe and winds whipping things around. Those winds are going to pick up continuing through into the evening hours. Have a look at the radar first, satellite and radar. So lots of cloud around, a few breaks in that cloud to the north of us, but the radar images are showing the snow right around the Winnipeg area. So this is moisture coming off of Lake Winnipeg, and the whiter images you see here in the 3-hour loop that ends at 6 p.m. Just on the east side of Winnipeg, Transcona, and just east of the city. That's where we're seeing the reduced visibilities at this moment anyway. This may change as we head through onto the evening hours. So yes, still some snow. I think we'll total out at around 5 centimeters when it's all said and done, but it's more about the wind. And we have a snow squall watch in the northern Interlake, central Manitoba. This is where we could see on the leeward side of the lakes. And with north winds, these are the areas right here that we could see 15 centimeters of snow piling up right on the shorelines there and then blowing around on the highways in the Interlake. And you know what it's like when we see those winds coming over the open waters. The water's relatively warm, and then that turns into sort of a fog because evaporation is happening, and then on the leeward side of the lakes, all that moisture is dropped as snow. Need an unfrozen lake, need about a 13-degree difference between the water temperature and the air temperature, and the longer distance across the water will make a difference as well. So -2 through most of the day today. Right now we're at -3 at the airport. The visibility at the airport is officially 16 kilometers. Winds are gusting to 50, but the visibility will be much lower on the east side of the city, where I just showed you those heavier snowfalls happening, at least for the moment. This is what it looks like on Futurecast. This all circulates from the north across the lakes, and as we head into the evening, we'll still see those snow squalls in the Interlake and around the Winnipeg area. They will be very localized. Into the morning, though, that all settles down because the winds will drop off by morning. And through the day, it's a sun-cloud mix. But it is a chilly Halloween, and I will have a specific Halloween forecast for you in my next weather simming, and I'll break down the times of things. Wednesday, a few flurries around, otherwise just a cloudy sky. And, well, snowfall amounts not all that high. Between now and midnight, maybe another centimeter around Winnipeg. Closer to the lakes could be a little bit more, and then as we head into tomorrow morning, a couple more centimeters around the Portage area closer to the lakes. And the winds are strong enough now, gusts to 50, even 60 in some areas. And then these winds will continue to be rather strong through the evening, but really drop off through the day tomorrow. All right, tonight's forecast, getting down to -10, some evening flurries, and then partly cloudy overnight. It'll be a bit of a brighter day tomorrow. Best we'll do in the afternoon, -5. It will be colder than that when the kids go out door to door with southwest winds at 20 to 30. And then we are a little bit milder through the rest of the week, but there's a lot of cloud around and still not even close to seasonal. Janet?
Well, thanks for keeping an eye on it for us, John. We'll talk to you later.
You bet.
Some of the best female flag football players in our province gathered over the weekend at the University of Winnipeg. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod went to check it out.
I started playing flag a few years ago, and ever since then I feel like I've grown to love the sport. I think it's great that it's becoming more of a female sport as well, and I'm in love with the sport. I used to play tackle football since I was 6, and I've always loved football. My family is a big football family, and I just love everything about it, and I think it's really fun to play.
So there's been phenomenal growth in Manitoba over the last 10 years. I've been involved in the program over the last decade. We're setting record registrations both in our indoor and outdoor leagues, and we have over 600 kids playing in our winter league currently, and there's close to 2,000 kids playing throughout the year, especially in our summer league, where I think last year we had something like 1,600 kids playing.
I'm not saying tackle football is less fun, it's really fun. It's just this is another sport to play in kind of the off season of tackle, so you're still playing football. I would love to play flag football in the Olympics. I think that it's a great opportunity for girls to try, and especially girls now that that's an option, like now girls can have a reason to go far for football.
I think the Olympics is definitely going to help grow the game, and I think for female participants, you know, when they see these women playing, and there's some just phenomenal women's players out there, that they're going to say, hey, you know what, I can do this, I can play this game, and I think the Olympics is going to really help jumpstart more women playing in the sport for sure.
Israeli officials say they have rescued a female soldier from Gaza. The latest developments on the war between Israel and Hamas after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. There are calls for a ceasefire or a humanitarian pause in Israel's war with Hamas. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says this is a time for war.
Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen.
As Israel's military pushes deeper into Gaza with troops and tanks, Israeli officials say they've rescued a female soldier captured by Hamas during the October 7th attack. About 240 people, including men, women, and children, are still believed to be hostages in Gaza. Hamas released a video today showing those 3 Israeli women begging to be rescued. The UN says more than 1.4 million people in Gaza have fled their homes as Israel ramps up airstrikes. Gaza's health ministry says 8,300 Palestinians have been killed in the last 3 weeks. In Israel, over 1,400 people were killed, mainly during the initial attack by Hamas. The son of a Jewish peace activist originally from Winnipeg, who is believed to be one of the hostages held by Hamas, is calling on international governments to help put an end to the war in Gaza. Jonathan Zegan worries Israel's airstrikes put his mother, 74-year-old Vivian Silver, in greater danger.
My basic belief is that military actions don't solve anything. The minute I understood that people are being held there, I thought that the right thing to do is to push immediately for diplomacy and to understand what the leverage they wanted when they took them, and doing that, striking a deal. I think that can also be the first step in the road to an alternative reality. I mean, if we are able to negotiate and to make deals about the captives, I think it can be a milestone in a way to the future.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met today with families of some individuals thought to have been abducted by Hamas. As Catherine Cullen reports, this happened as groups called on the federal government to lobby for a ceasefire.
All of the family, absolutely all of them, got kidnapped or murdered. So they don't have anyone else to speak up for them.
These 5 carry an enormous weight. Today, they told the Prime Minister and MPs about loved ones with ties to Canada who were killed, are missing, or being held hostage by Hamas.
People we talked to, they did not see this as a political message. They had tears in their eyes when they talked to us.
The message: do whatever you can to get the hostages released now.
I think that Canada hasn't done enough yet. I think the world hasn't done enough yet. And this should be a top priority.
This has to happen right now.
All hostages must be released, and it is important to allow food, fuel, and water in Gaza.
The Foreign Affairs Minister says 2 Canadians are missing and may be hostage, while some 400 Canadians are trapped in Gaza.
And as a government, we have a duty to bring them to safety. And that is why we need humanitarian pauses, a humanitarian truce in Gaza.
A call that has not been heeded, but some argue Canada's government should go further and push for a ceasefire.
Canada must call for a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, to halt the violence and protect civilian lives in Gaza, West Bank, and Israel.
Though this former Liberal cabinet minister says he represents an Israeli family who lost their son during a ceasefire nearly a decade ago.
During that ceasefire, he was then abducted and murdered, and Hamas for 9 years now has not even returned the body for proper burial.
One other way that Canada is involved in the Middle East, Defence Minister Bill Blair confirms that members of the Canadian Armed Forces are operating out of Canada's embassy in Tel Aviv. He says they're providing protection, but also contingency planning in case hostilities in the region get even worse. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Tomorrow is Halloween, so we're going to change gears a bit and join Jim Agapito as he visits a local Winnipeg school to ask kids about their Halloween plans. Hear what they have to say after the break. Well, it's here. Tomorrow is Halloween, a night when trick-or-treaters, all dressed up in costumes, will take to the streets in search of candy. CBC's Jim Agapito visited West Grove School in Winnipeg recently to ask students what some of their ghoulish plans are.
We are celebrating Halloween Spirit Week this week, so we are super excited. The energy levels are very high.
What is Halloween Spirit Week?
Well, we have Pajama Day, we have Costume Day, we have Dress Like a Pumpkin Day, and Fancy Day. They've been sharing about what costumes that they're going to make, what costumes they're going to wear.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man? Okay, why Spider-Man?
Because I like him. A person from WWE. An inflatable dinosaur.
How will you fit into an inflatable dinosaur costume?
There's like a hat in the back, and I'm just gonna like put my feet in there, and like it has little hands.
What routes they're gonna take for their Halloween candy getting.
Me and my brother, my dad used to drive us to the rich neighborhood, and they'd give us a lot of candy.
What is your favorite Halloween candy?
Kit Kats.
Kit Kats? Why Kit Kats?
Because they're good. I like chocolate more than like sweet. Twix.
Candy. Obviously, the reason why.
Trick or treat, give me treats. Trick or treat.
I would encourage my students to go out with their families, their friends, always going out in a group, making sure that our families are checking candy before students are eating them.
Biggest candy haul ever that you had?
2 pillowcases. 2 bags. 2 garbage bags.
Trick or treat, give me treats, please and thank you.
It's very special to be part of somebody's first Halloween, absolutely. We would have class discussions about it and share experiences and share stories. That's what keeps us connected and close.
What does it mean to be able to participate in Halloween for the first time?
Happy.
Happy? Yeah?
And excited. Trick or treat, give me a witch's treat.
On Halloween Day, we are going to be doing a costume parade at school, and I'm making sure that everybody's included by doing the sustainable Halloween costumes here at school so that I can make sure that all of my students have a costume to wear and that they're involved in Halloween in a safe way.
All together, trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something nice to eat. 3, 2, 1, go.
Give me trick or treat, give me something good to eat.
West Grove is really excited for Halloween this year.
Do it one more time.
Trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat.
All right, West Grove School, thanks for that. Of course, you have to make sure that your pets stay inside when people are trick-or-treating, right? You want to keep them safe, too. Children are not the only ones who like to say goodbye to October with a little Halloween treat. This zoo in England, for example, makes sure all its animals enjoy this celebration. This 2-year-old lioness, you see she's making short work of a jack-o'-lantern that's actually stuffed with meaty treats. The penguins are a bit more picky. Spiced fish isn't a trend among penguins, apparently, but like, hey, Whipside Zoo making sure that the animals it has, which are animals that remain under threat of extinction in their natural habitat, have a good Halloween. It was good that Jim was teaching them the classic smell my feet. They were missing that vital element.
I haven't heard that one at the door in a long time, but
yeah.
Maybe this year, now that Jim's done the story.
Yeah. I liked the please and thank you. That was my favorite part of what they said.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to the Halloween forecast, see what it's going to be like tomorrow evening. Now, a high in the afternoon of -5. That would be your 4 o'clock temperature. But by the time the kids are heading out, maybe as a dancing mummy, -8 degrees. That's colder than we've seen it in a long time. The last time we had a Halloween in Winnipeg that the afternoon high was below 0 was back in 2017. By 8 o'clock, -10. So not just the kids, but the parents are really going to have to dress for this. Everyone at -3 right now. That's the airport temperature. -2 at the Forks and across the rest of southern Manitoba. Colder than it should be. Normal high is 4, and we've got early evening temperatures in that -6, -7 range here in the west. Slightly warmer out to the east. Across the north, much the same, and it will be again tomorrow. As a matter of fact, tomorrow a little bit warmer in northern Manitoba than most of the southeast here. Tonight we've got occasional flurries, couple of centimeters here in Fort Francis, also in Dryden, but temperatures down around -7 to -8 for an overnight low. Overnight temps in Winnipeg -10, pretty close to that elsewhere. Some evening flurries, windy conditions, need to watch for snow squalls up through the Interlake as mentioned, and just a little bit of blowing and drifting snow until the winds drop off, which will happen in the overnight period. Here in the west, same sort of thing. Clearing skies, but windy, and all the way down to -16 in Brandon. That's, that feels more like or looks more like a January temperature, really. And then across the north, we've got some evening flurries up the western edge of the province, also in Thompson. Windy conditions up around Churchill. Tomorrow, winds west 40 gusting to 60, but these temps are actually above seasonal for the north. Quite a bit of cloud across northern Manitoba for tomorrow. Here in the south, particularly the southwest, warmer in Dauphin, Swan River, but -6 in Brandon, -5s around Portage, Morden, and Winkler. Also here in Winnipeg, so afternoon temperatures around that -4, -5 range through the Red River Valley. A little bit warmer, Pinawa and up around Barons River. Also in northwestern Ontario, where we'll see daytime highs tomorrow around -1, -2. By the time the kids head out for trick-or-treating, just take a few degrees off of these numbers for that 6 and 7 o'clock temperature.
Thanks very much, John.
You bet.
A former NHL player has died after a gruesome accident on the ice. 29-year-old Adam Johnson, who's from Minnesota, took a skate to the neck during a British Hockey League game. As the CBC's Jennifer Yoon reports, this incident's prompting renewed calls to make neck guards mandatory for all leagues.
And Adam Johnson back for Aston Reese.
Former Pittsburgh Penguin Adam Johnson played for the Nottingham Panthers in England's elite league until a tragic accident this weekend. During a Halloween-themed matchup, his neck was severely cut by a skate in a freak collision with another player in front of thousands of shocked fans, including kids.
The players went straight to him, everything stopped. 2 girls on the row in front of me were like going to the mum, as he died, and she couldn't really answer.
Officials ended the game and cleared the arena, but medical personnel could not save Johnson's life. In a statement, the Panthers say the team is heartbroken, and they're not the only ones, as the incident raises new questions about safety.
It's obviously hits, real close to home for me because, I almost died from the same accident.
Former NHL player Clint Malarchuk suffered a similar injury when he played for the Buffalo Sabres back in 1989. Malarchuk says his mom saw it happen on live TV, and now he's thinking about what Johnson's family must be going through.
I just can't put into words how it must be for them, and the kids from Minnesota, a big hockey state, and the whole hockey world's been affected by this for sure.
Others say this tragedy only highlights the importance of wearing protective equipment like neck guards, including this former junior player who also suffered a similar injury.
I got about 25 stitches on the side of my cheek. I keep saying that I'm lucky, but again, I think it was just because I was wearing a helmet and the proper equipment that I needed at the time.
In the NHL, some players choose to wear neck guards. We reached out to Hockey Canada, which says neck guards are mandatory for all players in minor hockey and in the Women's League. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
Canadian actor Matthew Perry also died this weekend. We revisit his conversation with the host of CBC's Q after the break. We have breaking news for you now. Striking workers at MPI have voted overwhelmingly in favor of rejecting the latest contract offer from the company. They are now in their 10th week of walking the picket line, and those pickets will resume tomorrow morning. Ottawa-based actor Matthew Perry died over the weekend at age 54. He was found dead at his home in the Los Angeles area. The official cause of death has not yet been released. Perry became a huge star thanks to the TV show Friends. Q host Tom Power spoke with Matthew Perry in front of a live audience in Toronto in November 2022.
It's lovely to have you. I've been looking forward to this. Congratulations on the book. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
How's the process been of just talking about it?
It's been, you know, what it's all about is helping people, and I've heard already 5 stories of people that read the book and checked into treatment.
Well, I thought what we could do is kind of start from the beginning.
Have a drink? Should we just have a drink?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, good idea. The book is called Friends, and Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. And the big terrible thing is, of course, your struggles with addiction over the years that you talk about in this book. It's a dark book. It's a real book. It's a very funny book. But again, there's reality there, and there's darkness there. And I want to start kind of where all that began, which is the first time you had a drink. You write about.
Yeah.
You were 14 in the backyard somewhere in Ontario, right?
Ottawa.
You were with a couple of buddies. What do you remember from that night?
Well, I mean, that was pretty heavy. I was with my best friends, the Murray brothers, and we decided, we didn't know what we were doing, you know, and they got some beers, and I got a bottle of wine called Anwar's Baby Duck, is the name of it. And I drank the entire bottle and lay in the ground and looked at the skies and just felt better than I ever had in my entire life. And I thought to myself, this is probably what normal people feel like all the time. For so long, I didn't know what was going on. I do now. And that's why the best thing about me is I can help people if they ask me to. Yeah, I can. Wonderful things happen in my life. I'm incredibly grateful for all of them, but that's the ticket for me, is helping people on a large scale or helping, you know, one guy and seeing the light turn on and him understanding what is happening. The other thing, man, is I didn't want this, and I didn't want to have this problem, you know?
No.
And it's so cunning, baffling, and powerful, alcoholism and addiction. And, you know, a lot of people say, because the reason this book has done so well and been taken into the hearts of so many people is because everybody's starting to know or have addiction in their life. People have a brother or a sister or a grandfather or a close friend who has addiction in their life, and they need to know from the addict's point of view, in this case me, how horrible it is and how they're not weak. We're not weak. I'm a pretty strong, resilient guy. But it has nothing to do with weakness. It's a disease that we have, and we don't know that we have it. And if somebody says, just stop, you know, you want to punch them in the face because they don't know, you know. Nancy Reagan had this slogan that said, just say no.
Just say no, yeah.
And you're like, well, idiot. If I could just say no, I wouldn't have to go to 9,000 AA meetings. I'd just be at home saying no all the time.
How did Chandler change as the person playing with him starts to struggle with addiction more and more during the...
He didn't change. What was changing was me. I had a rule that I would never drink or do drugs while working because I had too much respect for the 5 people that I was working with. So I was never wasted when I was working. Also, it would totally turn off the timing, and it would just be awful. But I did work extremely hungover. And, you know, at one point I was shaking so much that if I was going to go from the bookshelf to the table, I'd have to kind of quickly do it and put my hand on the table so I wouldn't shake. And, you know, it got that bad. Years later, I was in a treatment center in a detox ward, and I was coming off of many drugs, and I picked up the Alcoholics Anonymous book for the first time in my life. And I read, drinkers think they're drinking to escape, but what they're really doing is trying to get over a disease they don't know they have. It's actually, they say, they're trying to get over a mental disorder they don't know they have. And I went, that's me. I can't believe it. This book was written in 1939, and it's about me. It's about the guy who drove to the liquor store at 1:45 so he could drink alone. It's about all these habits. It's about why my reaction was different than the Murrays when we drank that day when I was 14. We were all 14. It separated me from the normal man. So it was a great day on the one hand. But on the other hand, it meant one day at a time, I have to stop drinking forever. And I thought, well, this is the only way I've ever enjoyed anything in the 20th century. And I have to give it up or, you know, it's going to kill me. So I gave it up for a long period of time. The secrets are what kill us. As soon as I mean, he was pulled out of me by somebody the first time I admitted it. But I was taking 55 Vicodin a day. I weighed 128 pounds. I was on Friends getting watched by 30 million people. And that's why I can't watch the show, because I was like brutally thin. And being beaten down so badly by the disease. So I went to Hazelden. I went to my first rehab. I didn't really learn anything. I kind of just imitated Michael Keaton the whole time. So I was like, what, do I have a problem with alcohol? And I was placed in some kind of spiritual guy's office, and we talked a little bit. And as we were done talking, he turned around. He turned me around and said, "Just remember, it's not your fault." And I went, "What?" He said, "It's not your fault." And I went, "Say that again." "It's not your fault." And I said, "What do you mean it's not my fault? I'm the one who's doing it. What do you mean?" And he explained addiction and alcohol to me, and he saved my life. Because I then knew that it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't weaker. It wasn't my will that was screwed up. It was that I have this disease, and I need to get help. And, you know, the thing that always makes me cry, and I hope I don't cry here, is that it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
That I had to go through this disease while the other 5 didn't. They got everything that I got. But I had to fight this thing, and still have to fight this thing. So just to end this on a good note, there are people that will help you, and get their help. It doesn't go away. It never goes away. I love you too. I think it helps us not to know each other.
What are the dreams now?
The dreams now, the best thing about me, bar none, is if somebody comes up to me and says, "I can't stop drinking, can you help me?" I can say yes and follow up and do it. That's the best thing. And I've said this for a long time. When I die, I don't want Friends to be the first thing that's mentioned. I want that to be the first thing that's mentioned. And I'm going to live the rest of my life proving that.
John's 7-day forecast is next. Stay with us.
The snow squall watch I was talking about earlier, well, within this hour, it has been increased in size and increased and extended to the south to not quite include the city of Winnipeg, but just outside the city to the east and to the north. And this is where we could see some snow squalls happening through the evening hours. It does settle down by tomorrow. Tomorrow's high on Halloween, just -5. A little bit warmer going forward. Lots of cloud around, a few flurries on Wednesday, and a few more flurries certainly possible on the weekend. And if you thought stepping on a Lego brick in bare feet, I have done that, was a scary experience, consider this.
Legoland in Denmark is marking Halloween with a very spooky display. Here's your daily lift. This display includes about 12,000 Halloween figures, pumpkins, spiders, mice, and mushrooms. Cool! All in addition to the largest Lego pumpkin ever made. That's it right there. The record-breaking pumpkin is more than 2 meters wide and 1 meter tall. It consists of 100,000 bricks.
Wow.
Visitors were encouraged to build their own creepy creations. You know, the first Legoland opened in Denmark, I almost said Dartmouth, in 1968. That's where the toy was invented, more than 3 decades earlier than that, so in the 1930s.
Wow.
Amazing.
I can't believe it. That must have taken a lot of time.
It would have taken a lot of time. We are out of time, so we'll see you tomorrow. Bundle up for Halloween.
Good night.